What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we are looking at our penultimate subclass for the Monk class, and that is the Way of Shadow Monk. This is the sneaky monk, the one that hides in darkness in order to sneak up on foes and deliver that killing blow. Is it enough to earn a winning ranking though? We are going to have to find that out today, but before we do that, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, most people who watch the channel are not subscribed, so please don't be one of those people. Help us to reach our goal of 5,000 by the end of this year. I really think we can do it, but I need your help, of course, to get there. And of course, make sure to share a video with your friends and click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. So the Way of Shadows Monk is a very cool take in that it is focused on stealth and subterfuge, on getting in quietly to where it is that you need to be. Maybe you are a monk assassin even. There are many different ways that you can play something like this, and there are really cool abilities that come with it. Is it worth taking over other subclasses though? Let's find out. Starting at 3rd level, we get Shadow Arts, and this gives us access to several really awesome spells. So with this, we can use an action to spend 2 key points and cast Darkness, Dark Vision, Pass Without Trace, or Silence, all of those without using material components. And we also get the Minor Illusion cantrip. Now, I want to say this is really cool right off the bat. However, I do have a bit of a complaint about this feature. There are so many subclasses that get access to dark vision without the need of the spell. They just get the feature instead, and I really feel like that would have been more appropriate here. So that's one little gripe that I have. I don't want to have the spell. I would rather have the ability and not have to cast a spell and use key points in order to gain it. Anyway, what we have here is some really awesome spells. Now, we also can't see in magical darkness, so we can cast darkness, but we can't see in it, kind of like the Shadow Sorcerer, which we will discuss on the channel far in the future. But so that's also a little bit interesting and difficult, right? Pass Without Trace is always going to be a good spell, and Silence is always going to be a good spell too. You can cast it in the area that you are to sneak around. You can cast it with a caster in its range where now verbal components are no good. And so there are some really interesting ways you can use this. However, Silence, of course, is a stationary spell ultimately, and so all the person has to do is just step out of the range. So that's also kind of tough. But overall, this isn't terrible, but there are some weaknesses for sure that I wish had been made just a little bit better overall. The 2 key point cost isn't terrible. So, I mean, I can't really complain too much about that either. Overall, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. It's not bad, but there are definitely things that I wish had happened. This is our only feature at level 3, and actually at each of our subclass levels we only get 1 feature, and so we really want to make sure that each of these count. And so having spells is nice, but we can't see in our own magical darkness, and we can't see in any darkness at all. So if you don't take a race that has this already, you're out of luck, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose of what you're trying to do. At level 6, we get Shadow Step, and this actually gives us a really cool teleportation ability. So when we are within dim light or darkness, we can teleport up to 60 feet away from us into another area of dim light or darkness as a bonus action. Then we get advantage on our first melee attack that we make before the end of that turn. Now, this is a bonus action, right? And so we are giving up something like Flurry of Blows. And so, I mean, yeah, you do get advantage on your first strike of that, but it kind of reminds me of True Strike, right? Which is notoriously one of the worst spells in the game. And so you're giving up attacks in order to make one with advantage. And so that's a little tough there as well. So there is a bit of contesting for what it is that we're trying to do. However, it is teleportation. And being able to go 60 feet as a bonus action ultimately is still very good, and there's no key cost here. And so for that, I can't really rank it too low either. So for that reason, I'm going to give this another 8 out of 10. I think it's good, but there are definitely things that are holding it back overall that keep me from going any higher, unfortunately. At level 11, we get Cloak of Shadows. And so with this, it's very simple. With an action, we can turn invisible as long as we are within dim light or darkness until we make an attack, cast a spell, or enter an area of bright light. So this is also interesting because this is basically just the invisibility spell, but slightly worse because we have to be in dim light or darkness. Now, again, there's no key cost here, so that helps, but again, we can't see in darkness, regular or magical, unless we cast dark vision on ourselves, and so that's kind of tough too. So again, we're kind of running into these interesting options here. I think as an action, it's a little much to try to use this in combat, at least most of the time. I would say this is probably going to be mostly used as an outside of combat type feature, which isn't necessarily the worst thing because, I mean, let's be real, you're going around in the darkness and then you can teleport, right, from one part of the darkness to another. So you don't necessarily have to walk through the area of bright light as long as it's less than 60 feet, right? So you can use this to really zip around and never be spotted. So I think that there definitely is a way that this can be used, especially outside of combat. I do think during combat, this isn't as useful. So unfortunately, it takes a hit there as well. Overall, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Invisibility is nice, but it's not greater invisibility. We are level 11. And of course, it is really kind of held back by the ability to cast it in bright light. And we, of course, whenever we make an attack, cast a spell, anything like that, it will also go away there too. And so, yeah, it's just a little restrictive in those ways. Finally, level 17, we get Opportunist. And so when a creature within 5 feet of us is attacked, we can actually use our reaction to make an attack against that creature. And so this is interesting. It's just basically part of the Sentinel feat. So whenever a creature within 5 feet of you is attacked, you can make an attack. So this is definitely interesting. And I don't know how I feel about something that is a somewhat common feat on monks being built in at level 17. It is really late to be getting something like this. Is it necessarily bad? No, not necessarily. But at the same time, we don't have any kind of crazy features that do anything, you know, insane when we hit. At least nothing that any other monk can't do. Of course, you could apply something like a stunning strike to this attack and possibly interrupt a multi-attack. So that's definitely a thing and definitely could be very useful. But overall, I don't know that this is anything game-changing when I could get this plus a little bit more with the Sentinel feat much earlier. So overall, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. It is one of the most useful parts of Sentinel, but ultimately it's not the only part. And so ultimately, I probably would rather take the Sentinel feat. But, you know, if you'd rather take something different like mobile or something different, this kind of frees that up a little bit. So what do we think of the Way of Shadow Monk overall? This is tough, right? Because I think it's kind of teetering between good and bad. And its kit is a little confused on what it's trying to do. Like I said, we can cast darkness, but we don't have any way to see in it. We can cast dark vision, but we should have definitely just gotten dark vision already. And so that's tough too. We have to use a bonus action in order to teleport, but with that, you know, we get an advantage on one attack, but then we're missing out on the possibility of Flurry of Blows. So that's tough. And then we can use our action in order to go invisible. But like, I don't know, it just seems like it's a little costly to do that. So with every feature, there's plenty of good and there's just a little bit of bad. So I don't think it's a bad subclass by any means. I think the flavor is super on point, but the function is just a little bit lacking in what it is that I would really like out of this subclass. Ultimately, I've got to give this an 8 out of 10. It's not terrible. It's not the worst monk out there. It's passable for sure. And I will say that with the mobility options that you have as a monk, this just makes it even more so, right? You've already got an insane move speed, plus you can then shadow step up to 60 feet. and you still have your action to do whatever it is that you want to do. So you do have a lot of mobility here that is given, and you have a lot of abilities to infiltrate. And that's really where I think this shines, is kind of being the rogue that's not a rogue type of thing. And maybe you can multi-class this with rogue. Maybe that's an idea for you. But ultimately, I think that it's passable, and I think that it definitely would be a lot of fun to play, but there are definitely stronger options out there. So what do you think of my ranking? Is it too high, too low? What do you think? It's not bad, but we'll see what you think down in the comments below. Later this week, we are going to be building one of these, and I'll just tell you, it's a little bit of an off-the-wall build. We are not just throwing on some rogue levels and going from there. We're doing some weird stuff this week, and I am excited to show you what I have come up with. And then next week, we are finishing up talking about the monk, which is very exciting. I am very excited to move on to Paladin, a lot of people's favorite class, and so we will be getting to that very soon. Until then, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.